thought you said I had a needle nose.
Remember when you'd rush home from school to catch that quirky sitcom about a robot girl living in a suburban house? Small Wonder wasn't your typical family show. For 4 years, starting in 1985, Vicky the Robot charmed audiences with her monotone voice, her red pinafore dress, and the impossible task of keeping her true identity secret from nosy neighbors. The show was strange, sweet, and somehow unforgettable. Today, we're diving into Small Wonder, 1985, 10 wild facts you didn't know.
Program itself to act like a real child? I mean, even have emotions.
Oh, Ted, that would be fabulous. Well,
Fact 10, it was one of the first successful syndicated sitcoms. Small Wonder premiered on September 7, 1985, in first-run syndication, meaning it didn't air on a major network like NBC, ABC, or CBS. Instead, individual television stations across the country bought the rights to air it locally. This was a risky move in the mid-1980s, when most successful sitcoms lived on the big three networks, where they enjoyed nationwide exposure, massive promotional budgets, and the prestige of network backing. The show was produced by Metro Media, a company trying to break into the syndication market with fresh, affordable programming that local stations could afford. Creator Howard Leeds had originally pitched the concept to NBC, where he had a development deal based on his previous success with shows like Silver Spoons. When NBC passed on the Robot Family concept, Leeds bought the rights back and sold it to Metro Media instead. That decision changed everything and showed real faith in the material. Small Wonder became one of the earliest half-hour comedies to find success in syndication, proving that quality family programming didn't need network backing to find an audience and make money. The show aired on 33 stations initially and grew from there as more local markets picked it up, paving the way for other syndicated hits that would follow in the late 1980s and early 1990s. The syndication model meant the show could air at different times in different markets. Some stations played it after school, others on weekend mornings, and still others in early evening time slots. This flexibility actually helped Small Wonder find its audience of children and families who were looking for lighthearted, uncomplicated entertainment.
No, I don't want to impose. But I could use some...
Fact 9. The show had an impossibly low budget. Each episode of Small Wonder cost approximately $300,000 to produce. That might sound like a lot of money, but creator Howard Leeds believed it was the lowest budget of any sitcom on television at the time. For comparison, network sitcoms in the 1980s often had budgets double or triple that amount, with hit shows spending $600,000 or more per episode. This shoestring budget affected absolutely everything about the production, from the sets, to the special effects, to the number of guest stars they could afford to hire. The Lawson house was a simple, modest set that didn't change much over 4 seasons. The special effects, showing Vicky's superhuman abilities, were created using primitive green screen technology, and they looked it. The wires were often visible, the movements looked clunky, and the compositing was far from seamless. Vicky's head would spin around, or she'd lift something impossibly heavy with one hand, but the effects were clearly done on the cheap and looked like exactly what they were. Every Thursday morning was devoted entirely to filming these effect sequences, requiring Tiffany Brissett to come in early and spend hours alone in front of green screens, while technicians fussed with equipment and lighting. The low budget even affected the laugh track and how rehearsals were conducted. The show employed a little person in his 50s named Lou, who would stand behind the camera during rehearsals and laugh on cue. A distinctive and somewhat ominous laugh that told the cast where to pause for audience reaction. Emily Schulman, who played Harriet, remembered it as disconcerting for a 6-year-old to hear this disembodied laugh coming from the darkness behind the cameras. Lou served double duty as a stand-in for the child actors during lighting setups and camera blocking because the production simply couldn't afford to hire separate people for both jobs. Every penny was squeezed, every corner was cut, and yet somehow the show found its audience and ran for 4 full seasons.
any suggestions?
Well, can we pack and move before dinner time?
Fact 8. Tiffany Brissett beat out some major names for the role. Before 10-year-old Tiffany Brissett was cast as Vicky, creator Howard Leeds auditioned approximately 400 other young actresses for the role. This was an extensive search that took time and resources the production could barely afford, but Leeds knew the entire show would succeed or fail based on who played the robot. Among those who tried out for the part were some girls who would go on to much bigger fame in Hollywood. Candace Cameron Bure, who would become a household name just a few years later as DJ Tanner on Full House starting in 1987, auditioned for Vicky and didn't get it. So did Heather O'Rourke, the young actress who had already starred in Poltergeist in 1982 and its 1986 sequel, making her one of the most recognizable child actors of the decade. But Brissett won the role because she could do something the others couldn't quite manage, no matter how talented they were. Playing a robot required her to speak in a perfect monotone voice, show zero facial expression, and move with mechanical precision and stiffness, all while being a kid who naturally wanted to smile and express emotion and move fluidly. It went against every instinct a child has. Brissett would gnaw on the inside of her cheeks to keep from smiling during takes, creating physical discomfort to maintain the robotic facade. She could also perform strange mimicry when the script called for Vicky to imitate people, which happened frequently in the show. Her mother, Diane Brissett, later recalled that Tiffany could do a good John Wayne impression, which apparently came in handy for the role and impressed the producers during auditions. Leeds was so paranoid about losing his perfect Vicky once he'd found her that he worried constantly about Brissett getting injured and derailing the entire production. He didn't like that she rode horses or went ice skating in her free time, fearing she might get hurt and force them to either shut down production or replace her, which would have been devastating to the show.
Something secret at home, Ted, or stealing from the office?
No, it's just some cheap.
Fact 7. The show was massive in international markets. While Small Wonder had decent success in the United States with steady ratings among children and families, it became absolutely huge overseas in ways that surprised everyone involved with the production. The show was sold to more than 20 countries and found especially devoted audiences in places the producers never anticipated becoming major markets. In Italy, the show was titled Super Vicky and aired on the Italia 1 network starting in the mid-1980s, where it became appointment television for Italian families. In France, it was called La Petite Merveille, which translates to The Little Marvel, and broadcast on Canal Plus beginning in November 1985, just 2 months after the American premiere. Brazil also used the title Super Vicky, and the show found a passionate audience there as well. The show became enormously popular in India, Pakistan, China, and throughout the Middle East, regions where American sitcoms weren't always guaranteed success. In India, it aired on Star Plus in the 1990s, both in English and dubbed in Hindi, creating an entire generation of fans who grew up with Vicky and considered the show a fundamental part of their childhood television experience. The show aired in Saudi Arabia during the holy month of Ramadan as daily family viewing on Saudi TV Channel 2, becoming part of the evening ritual for families breaking their fast. It broadcast in Iraq with Arabic subtitles under the title The Little Wonder. In Spain, it aired on Antena 3, television as Un Robot en Casa, which means a robot in the house. Tiffany Brissett and her mother spent weekends being shuttled around the world for promotional appearances in these international markets. Once, Brissett sang for a crowd of more than 30,000 people in Bogota, Colombia, an experience that must have been overwhelming for a young girl from Paradise, California. The international success of Small Wonder was so significant that it became many people's first exposure to American television and suburban American culture, giving them a window into how American families lived, even if that window featured a robot daughter.
In the living room and play with your robot. Let's go in the living room.
Fact 6. India created an entire remake. The show's popularity in India was so intense and long-lasting that in 2003, nearly 2 decades after Small Wonder first aired, an Indian production company created Karishma Ka Karishma, a full remake of the American show. The title translates to The Miracle of Charisma, and the series aired on Star Plus, the same network that had broadcast the original Small Wonder years earlier. The remake followed the same basic premise. A robotics engineer creates a child robot that the family tries to pass off as a real girl to the outside world. The robot was named Karishma instead of Vicky, and the setting was adapted to an Indian household with Indian customs, family structures, and cultural references that would resonate with local audiences. The show starred young actress Janak Shukla as Karishma the robot, and produced by Sunil Doshi of Alliance Media and Entertainment. It became successful in its own right and ran for multiple seasons, though purists who loved the original Small Wonder weren't always fans of the adaptation and felt it didn't capture the same magic. The fact that an American syndicated sitcom from 1985, made on a shoestring budget with primitive special effects, inspired an Indian remake nearly 2 decades later speaks volumes about how deeply the show connected with audiences in that part of the world. Small Wonder had become more than just a television show in India and Pakistan. It was a cultural touchstone that bridged generations, introduced Western storytelling and family dynamics to millions of viewers, and created shared memories that parents could pass down to their children when the remake aired.
My name is... Oh, shut up, you stupid robot!
Listen, we're really...
Fact 5. The cast had serious challenges with the special effects. The primitive green screen technology used to create Vicky's robotic abilities made life difficult for everyone on set, especially young Tiffany Brissett, who bore the brunt of it. Every Thursday morning, the cast would arrive early specifically for special effects filming, a day that everyone dreaded. Brissett would spend most of the day alone in front of green screens while technicians tried to make her perform superhuman feats like lifting refrigerators, spinning her head completely around, or stretching her arms to impossible lengths. It was a tedious, exhausting process that required countless takes and technical adjustments as the crew struggled with the limitations of 1980s television technology. During one particularly frightening incident that could have ended very badly, Brissett had trouble breathing after the crew pulled a green stocking over her entire head for a specific visual effect. Her mother had to intervene urgently to make sure she was okay and could breathe properly. The other cast members learned quickly to avoid being in scenes that required special effects work. Marla Pennington, who played Mother Joan Lawson, admitted years later that whenever Tiffany was scheduled to do something requiring effects, the other actors would find convenient excuses to be elsewhere, or would position themselves far away from the action. Nobody wanted to spend hours in hair and makeup just to potentially be in a complicated green screenshot that might not even make it into the final episode. The effects shots almost always featured Vicky alone as a result, which made the special effects sequences feel isolated and disconnected from the rest of the show's family dynamics. But the budget simply didn't allow for better technology or more elaborate setups that could have included more cast members or created more seamless effects. The show made do with what it had, and audiences accepted the clunky effects as part of Small Wonder's charm.
Man, that's all applesauce to me. The answer is 100.
Fact 4. They had to explain Tiffany's growth with a growth chip. One major challenge for any long-running show featuring child actors is that children grow up whether the story needs them to or not. And Small Wonder faced this problem head-on in a way that required creative storytelling. When the series began in September 1985, Tiffany Brissett was 10 years old, and Vicky was supposed to be a child robot whose appearance would theoretically never change. But over 4 seasons, spanning nearly 4 years, Brissett naturally grew taller. Her face matured, and her body began to develop as any preteens would. The producers had to come up with an in-universe explanation that fit the show's sci-fi logic and wouldn't break the audience's willing suspension of disbelief. In the 3rd season, they had the character of Ted Lawson install a special growth chip in Vicky that became a major plot point. This upgrade allowed her to physically grow like a real child, age her facial features gradually, and gave her new abilities that made her seem more human, including the ability to eat and drink. The food would pass through her system naturally through some unexplained robotic process, and the drinks would cool her internal mechanisms, while also making her appear more normal when eating meals with the family. This upgrade also allowed the costume department to finally move away from Vicky's iconic red and white pinafore dress with white knee socks that she'd worn for the first 2 seasons and had become her signature look. She started wearing normal 1980s clothes that any kid might wear, jeans and sweaters and regular dresses, which helped her blend in better and reflected the show's increasing attempts to make Vicky seem more human as the seasons progressed. The producers even made the controversial decision to skip traditional production hiatuses between seasons out of fear that the young actors would hit puberty too quickly during extended breaks, which could make the illusion of Vicky as a child robot harder to maintain and would create continuity problems. They wanted to keep production moving steadily to control as much as possible how much the children aged on screen and prevent any dramatic changes between seasons.
Don't mention it to anyone.
Who would I tell? Nobody talks to me.
Fact 3. Creator Howard Leeds had done this before. Howard Leeds wasn't new to stories about robots trying to blend in with humans when he created Small Wonder. Before creating this show, he had worked on a 1960s sitcom called My Living Doll, which starred Julie Newmar, who would later become famous as Catwoman as an adult female android trying to fit into human society. That show ran from 1964 to 1965 and featured Bob Cummings as the man who takes custody of the robot and tries to help her learn about human behavior and emotions. The premise was nearly identical to Small Wonder in many ways, just with an adult gynoid instead of a child robot, and with the 1960s sensibility that made everything a bit more sophisticated. Leeds was also a successful television writer and producer who had co-created Silver Spoons, the NBC sitcom starring Ricky Schroeder that ran from 1982 to 1987 and was a huge hit. He had also worked extensively on Different Strokes, another popular sitcom of the early 1980s that dealt with serious social issues while maintaining a family-friendly tone. These experiences gave Leeds credibility in the industry and proved he understood what worked in family television. He was a former child actor himself who had worked in entertainment from a young age, so he understood what appealed to young audiences and what challenges child performers faced. When he developed Small Wonder in the early 1980s, he envisioned it as broadly written entertainment aimed squarely at children rather than adults or critics. He wanted simple, easy-to-follow stories, physical comedy that kids would find funny, and a sci-fi premise that children could understand and enjoy without needing complex explanations. The adult sophistication that made other sitcoms critically acclaimed didn't interest Leeds for this particular project. He wanted to make something fun for families and kids to watch together, even if television critics rolled their eyes at the simple plots and broad humor. That single-minded focus on the target audience of children helped Small Wonder find its place despite its obvious limitations in budget and special effects.
Can I come over and see her again?
No way. Forget it. Vicky's not your type. Goodbye, Warren.
Fact 2. The show had almost no merchandising. Despite Small Wonder's success with its target demographic of children, and despite running for 4 full seasons with 96 episodes, there was surprisingly little merchandising support for the show. A Halloween costume was produced and released 1 year, allowing kids to dress up as Vicky the Robot, complete with the red and white pinafore dress. A prototype for a Vicky the Robot doll was actually created and went through initial testing phases, but it never made it past development to actual mass production and retail sale. Ideas for a Small Wonder cartoon series were discussed in various development meetings and pitch sessions, then quietly dismissed without ever moving forward. There were no lunchboxes featuring Vicky and the Lawson family, no action figures of the characters, no board games based on the show, no coloring books, no sticker albums, nothing. For a children's show that ran for 4 seasons and had devoted fans around the world, especially in international markets, the lack of merchandise was highly unusual. Most successful children's shows of the 1980s generated substantial revenue from toy sales and licensing deals. Part of this lack of merchandising may have been because Metro Media, and later Fox, which bought Metro Media, didn't have strong faith in the show's long-term commercial prospects beyond its immediate television success. Fox had no vested interest in promoting Small Wonder as a major property beyond honoring the 2-year renewal commitment that Metro Media had made for seasons 3 and 4 before the corporate buyout. The network was focused on building its own identity and programming, and Small Wonder was a syndicated show they'd inherited, rather than something they'd developed themselves. The lack of merchandising meant the show existed purely as a television property without any extensions into other media. There were no toys for kids to play with at home, no lunchboxes to take to school and show off to friends, nothing to extend the Small Wonder universe beyond the 30 minutes per week on television. For a show that defined so many childhoods in the 1980s and became a cultural phenomenon in countries like India and Brazil, that absence of merchandise is genuinely striking and represents millions in lost revenue.
I brought this for Vicky.
I'll make sure she gets it.
Jamie, that is rude.
Fact 1. Life after Small Wonder took very different paths. The 3 young stars of Small Wonder had vastly different experiences after the show ended its run in May 1989, and their stories illustrate the unpredictable nature of child stardom. Tiffany Brissett continued acting briefly after the series concluded, appearing in shows like Equal Justice from 1990 to 1991, where she had a recurring role as Katie Rogan, and Parker Lewis Can't Lose in 1991. Her final professional acting role came in 1991, making her only 16 years old when she decided to leave the entertainment industry. She then made a conscious, deliberate decision to leave Hollywood behind entirely and pursue a completely different life. Brissett returned to normal teenage life, attending regular high school instead of being tutored on set, participating in athletics and sports teams, enjoying friendships with kids her own age, and even running a marathon to challenge herself physically. She earned a bachelor's degree in psychology from Westmont College, a Christian liberal arts school in Santa Barbara, California, and worked as a counselor for troubled youth and young adults in the San Diego area, using her education to help kids who were struggling. In 1991, at age 17, she made a memorable appearance on the 700 Club, where she spoke about her faith and even sang, showing a side of herself that audiences hadn't seen during her years as the monotone robot. Later, she moved to Boulder, Colorado, worked as a nanny while continuing her education, and eventually earned a nursing degree. She became a registered nurse and has worked in that profession ever since, dedicating herself to caring for patients. In 2007 and 2009, she appeared in a few Where Are They Now segments on Good Morning America and The Morning Show with Mike and Juliet, reuniting with some of her former cast members via satellite, but otherwise has maintained her privacy and stayed completely out of the entertainment industry. She has avoided social media and public appearances, preferring a quiet life away from the spotlight. Jerry Superin, who played Jamie Lawson, the human brother, faced much harder times after Small Wonder ended. By his late teens and early 20s, he had lost the money from his trust fund that held his earnings from the show. He claimed that a girlfriend took what was left of his money and that financial advisors allegedly stole approximately $500,000 from him through mismanagement or fraud. He became a father at just 19 years old in 1992, which added more financial pressure and responsibility. He worked in various steakhouses and restaurants for about 15 years, trying to make ends meet and support himself through regular employment. But he lost his restaurant job in Henderson, Nevada in 2010 due to the economic downturn and struggled to find new work. By 2012, Superin made national headlines when the National Enquirer reported that he was homeless, sleeping either in a homeless shelter where he volunteered his time or under a bridge in Central California. He had returned to the area where his brother lived with his family, and while his brother helped him with hot meals and occasional showers, there wasn't enough room in the house for Jerry to stay there permanently. The story of the former child star living on the streets resonated with people and sparked conversations about how Hollywood treats child actors. His mother, Linda, suffered a heart attack in 2012, and caring for her became a genuine turning point in his life and gave him purpose. He slowly began rebuilding his life, working towards stability and finding support systems. In 2013, he expressed to TMZ his desire to return to the entertainment industry and actively campaigned for a spot on Dancing with the Stars, hoping that nostalgia would work in his favor. Eventually, he married his wife, Michelle Malik, and has been working toward creating a stable, private life away from the headlines. As of recent years, he appears to be doing better and has found some peace after very difficult times. Emily Schulman, who played the annoying neighbor girl Harriet with her signature greeting of "Hi ye" that became iconic and irritating in equal measure, faced her own challenges in the years following Small Wonder. During her teenage years, peers teased her mercilessly and even bullied her for being on what many critics and entertainment writers called one of the worst shows in television history. Strangers would approach her and say cruel things about the show's quality. She later said she wished she and the other child actors had been closer during filming, so they could have formed a support group to help each other through the difficult transition from child star to regular teenager, because that transition was really hard to navigate alone. She eventually moved on from acting and built a life away from the spotlight, though the show remained part of her identity, whether she wanted it to be or not. The varying fates of the child actors from Small Wonder reflect the unpredictable and often difficult nature of child stardom and the unique challenges that come with early fame, financial pressures, and growing up in the public eye. Small Wonder might have been ridiculed by critics and called one of the worst sitcoms ever made, but for 4 seasons, it entertained millions of children and families around the world. From its low-budget origins in first-run syndication to its massive international popularity, from Tiffany Brissett's pitch-perfect robotic performance to the real-life struggles faced by the cast afterward, the show's story is far more interesting than people might expect. Those 96 episodes became comfort viewing for an entire generation, and for many people in places like India, Pakistan, and Brazil, Small Wonder was their introduction to American television. The show proved that you didn't need a big network, a massive budget, or critical acclaim to create something that resonated with audiences. Sometimes all you needed was a girl, a robot costume, a cabinet to hide in, and a willingness to embrace the weird. If you enjoyed these facts about Small Wonder, give this video a like and subscribe for more nostalgic looks at the shows that defined our childhoods. Thanks for watching.